Hello again. Today's footage is from the working on the bump out, the second side. Since the first bump out framing was a little less than stellar, you can see here I'm taking a little bit more precaution and making sure I'm writing down numbers and measurements. And then I'm gathering wood from my little pile and bringing over what I'm going to need so I can get everything cut. This time definitely went more smoothly, with the single exception that apparently the girt on the left of the screen, on the south side of the trailer, is slightly lower than the girts on the right side of the screen. And I think, well, never mind. I'm not sure exactly how I did that. They were supposed to be all 2 foot on center. But somehow there's a little bit of a discrepancy, which I didn't actually notice, because they're not connected until I actually put the girt on the outside of the bump out up. But that's okay. That'll be an easy enough thing to fix when I go back through and finish doing the prep for the siding. And I haven't used the nailer for a few days because I discovered there was a leak in the hose, so I had to pick up a little coupler kit. And I figured I'd try and fix my old hose as well, because I found a break in that one. I ended up giving up. The hose is so tightly on the barbs that I couldn't easily get it off. We'll say that. So after a couple of tries, I just decided it was okay to be 2 pieces instead of 1, which means I have a spare repair kit pieces now. So I'm okay with that, because that's never a bad thing. I would have fixed this hose right when I had the problem, right when I found the leak before, but I didn't have the pieces to do so. So you can see over here where I just moved the speaker, that is a stack of cottonwood that'll go up for siding, and I actually milled over the weekend 4 more logs, and so that's where I'm currently at, is working on the siding. So that's definitely a fun part of the build, because that's when it really starts to look like a building. So here I'm cutting these will be the girts on the behind me on the west side of the bump out. Clearly Charlie decided that he wanted to see what I was doing, since I'm not usually down on the ground like this, and so anytime I am, he comes over to investigate, because now I'm at his level. My pen ended up deciding to no longer work, so I'm using my my knife as a marking knife, which actually works pretty well. And then I also have it all out to be able to remove what little bit of bark might be there on some of these. And every time I handle this stuff, it amazes me the difference between woods, and I don't know why. Like that piece right there that I'm working on is a noble fir. It's just a different color, different texture. One of the challenges of the noble fir, I've learned, is that it is far more prone to give slivers. And normally I don't usually wear gloves when I'm working with wood, but I've learned that I kind of have to with the noble firs, otherwise I end up with quite literally dozens of slivers by the end of the day. And they're tiny little super annoying slivers. So thus you see I have a glove on at least the one hand. The other hand I needed to do a little bit more dexterous things, so and you can see I was smart this time and decided to put the light up. I actually had to take a pause here. I forgot about that. So while I was working, I got a very distraught holler from Emily, who was taking care of rabbits. And I knew that it's uncommon, but it's possible for a rabbit to thump so hard that it can actually break its back when they get scared or too agitated, too excited, things like that. We've never actually had that happen, but apparently something got into our rabbitry and scared one of our rabbits. Bad enough that Emily went out to feed her, and she was fine last night when I went out and checked on him, but today apparently somewhere along the line she wasn't able to move her back end anymore, so we had to go and take care of her and put her down. It was kind of a crappy day, actually. So that's where I ended up having to go disappear. But yeah, so we're down to 3 does at the moment, which is we're down to 2 does, 3 bucks and 2 does. And we haven't had that few does since we first started raising rabbits. The hardest part is when we lose a bloodline like that, because we try and keep, we've always kept at least 3 does. We try to keep 2 of each bloodline, so we'll keep like a mother and a daughter, so that we have, in case something happens. But we just haven't had the demand for rabbits yet, because we don't have anywhere to process for selling, and we just don't need to breed more than we eat right now. So we're gonna have to start working on that. But that one was one of our. She was ultimately the last of a bloodline from some friends. So anyway, here you can see I made a mistake, and when I did really well measuring everything, and then I forgot that I measured them for the short boards to go on top, which is kind of the way it should always be. That way there's no shear risk when you're doing stuff like this, because then all of the weight is actually on a board instead of on nails sticking through the board. But once I went to put it up, I realized obviously that it wasn't going to fit. It was too wide and too short, so it was pretty easy to fix that real quick. And this is where framing nailers truly shine. They are amazing at their job. And just like that, ready to go. Throw a couple nails in one side, throw a couple nails in down through the other side. I mean, screws have their place. I love screws. They're a super functional, super useful tool. And they definitely do something nails don't, which is pull things tightly together. But they sure are slow. We'll get these purlins in. Sorry, girts. Get a couple in on this side. And so this one is nice and straight. The camera angle kind of skews it a little bit since it's a wide angle lens, but this particular board, the bark was really not ready to release. It put up quite the fight to try and get that off. But here you can definitely see, like I was saying, I got that up and I was looking at the footage and went, hey, that's not straight, or not level. So I'll pop that off. When I get over there with the siding, I'll hurry and pop that off and bring it down just a little bit. But that's okay, it's not going to hurt anything until then. So now that I've got all of this done, the next step is rafters. So I've got to get a ledger board put up. Pretty simple process here. And again, with the nails, it just goes super fast, but since it is, a pretty good structural piece, I threw in a couple of construction screws too, just to be on the safe side. And then I wanted to take my board there and just make sure that the rafter pieces were all going to properly fit, which everything's built to the same dimensions, so it makes sense that they will, but you never know sometimes. So now I'm just rough cutting a bunch of pieces, and you can see they're a little too wide. So I'll go on to over to the table saw and rip them down to width. But since table saws don't really like ripping, I figure why make it work harder than I have to, so we'll make sure they're all the right length first. Now we'll head over to the table saw. And I got to tell you, this little that miter gauge that I just pulled off of there was something that I'd kind of wanted for a long time, and I never got around to purchasing for myself, just because I mean they're a little pricey, or they can be. It was actually given to us by a family member as a gift, and it's been one of the most useful tools in the collection when using the table saw. It's a Incra, I think is the name. Obviously, I'm not sponsored or anything because I don't even remember the brand. um, but it's been head and tails way better than the stock miter saw or miter gauge. So if you're using a table saw a lot, that's definitely something that's worth upgrading from your default. So we're coming close to the end of the battery life here for tonight, and this is actually where I ended up finishing off anyway. Was cutting out the angled top cut, and then the bird's mouth cuts. So that was pretty good. The battery lasted for most of my project for the day. But I'm just trying to clean that notch out there. So thank you as always for watching. God bless and have a good day.